Yeah, so accessible housing mean to me in my everyday life is independence, truly quality of life, right? And I believe that everyone should have the basic needs and a certain level of quality. So when I am able to be home and get to my bathroom, get to my room, get to my shower, my cabinets, and able to defend for myself at whatever level of injury that I have, that's what that means to me. So it really just means basic needs, quality of freedom and independency. I'll be honest with you, and this is 100% transparent. I'm originally from Connecticut, so I've been in Massachusetts since '96. I've never had an apartment out here that is accessible. I've been in the wheelchair since I was in 17. That was in '94. Came to Massachusetts in '96. I was homeless for 3 years due to all the above, right? Just not me knowing the system, me not having the systems that would help me get into an apartment that was accessible. If I would actually find an apartment at that time, I couldn't do it because it wasn't affordable. Now we're talking early night, like we're talking about the '90s, right? But just reflecting back how young I was a young man, but a young paraplegic man, and so I've never, as I don't think that question has ever been asked, but I've never had an accessible apartment. So over, I want to say 20 something years, I've been here in Massachusetts, and all my apartments have been a form of me compromising. Um, Everything from not being able to get into certain parts of the house, apartment, not getting into the bathroom. Sometimes there was times where I actually had couldn't get in or out of my house or my apartment unless someone was with me because I would have to put my butt on the ground and go step by step, which ultimately created so many problems like skin breakdowns, which I've caught bone infection off of those processes. But yeah, just to answer your question, I've never had the actual freedom, even, and I think this needs to be clear because some would say, well, financially, I was not in the right state. Okay. Even now that I could financially, support myself and hold myself to find an actual accessible apartment, they're just not out there. And so there's the compromise price with quality and yeah. So saying this frustrating is an understatement. Is anger. Me personally, I I've had to shift my mindset. Um, I generally put myself in certain people's situation, anger, frustration. I believe it affects somebody's quality of thinking, confidence. Just being in a position for those that don't know what it feels like to have to depend on someone to basic needs, take a shower, eat. You know, some folks don't even have significant others. They don't have loved ones, right? You know, they live on their own. That's just devastating. It really is. So I think that it's such a hurtful position to be in. Me first of all, I know what it is to be homeless. I know what it is to not have the financial means to not I don't do drugs, I don't drink, I don't like there's no it's just me just trying to become the better version of myself. And here we have a system that it doesn't really empathize. And it seems like the system is just there to check off. We did this part and we have 10% of apartments. And it's like, are like that is beyond. And I believe that the frustration, the anger, the sadness come from people don't understand. And I say people, whether it's systems, our government, individuals in power, that we are all in a position that we're one situation away from being paralyzed, challenged with some type of disease, disabled in some type of way, whether it's an accident, whether it's a process to something. And as we get older, we're not thinking of not only these individuals that are are disabled, but are older. So I just think it's devastating. It's devastating to a huge part of our community, and not understanding that we have to find that medium that really, I know that because you have to think about both sides of the fence, but I think it's lopsided. I think that we're just doing things to check off. We're not even meeting halfway. Meeting halfway would look different if we all took a different, different hat into the situation. And, everybody's in position to be in the same situation. And I don't pray that upon nobody, but that could happen to any of us. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I'll digress. We're grateful for it. I'm sure that there's other states, and I don't know the logistics of that or the stats to that. But as we go into new as society grow, and we go into different pain points in the economy, we have to move accordingly. And I think that's we've set that standard, stopped, and that standard for 10% was great. Maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And it's like, okay, we're in 2026. That 10% is no longer, that's just probably more like 1% at this point because of everything that we're dealing with economy. So yeah, I believe this is just like, at least moving it up to 15. That is a start. It might not be a complete win, but it shows some uh, initiation to really, become a solution, not a problem. I've been a paraplegic due to gun violence for 30 years. And so over the years, I've had multiple challenges. Chronic UTI has been one of them. Skin breakdowns has been another, and a number of other things. Um, the safety of when I'm actually dealing with a UTI infection, me being able to get in from one room to another, me being able to fence for myself when it comes to my basic needs, which is feeding myself, um, but most importantly, like the shower and bathroom situation. That within itself, I'm actually crawling into my bathroom as we present right now. I have to get off my chair and I have to crawl into my bathroom. My bathroom is very small. It's not accessible. I have an amazing landlord. It's not his fault because that's just he gave a chance for me to come here, and we've been here for maybe 8 years. But the reality, this is not an accessible apartment. And so when I'm going in and out the bathroom, mind you, if I'm sick with a UTI infection or skin breakdown, that puts me in danger and safety matter because again, number one, if I have a skin breakdown and I'm actually putting myself in an environment where I'm putting my behind on the floor, that could cause bone infection, blood infection, which I've ultimately dealt with those things in the maybe 4 times out of my 30 year of me being a paraplegic. I've been in the hospital for a year plus in a bed due to a bone infection. So those are areas where it expands the percentage of me getting sick and then ending up going to the hospital, which now that deteriorates everything I built for myself and just my personal journey and my bills and all that stuff. Secondly, which is the first one that really always terrifies me is the floor being wet, me getting it out and out the shower. There's no secure way for me to do that. It's a small area, so I have to obviously it's a challenge for me to get on the shower chair, get off the shower chair. The floor is extremely wet because of the shower. But again, I could do what many of folks that I know do, which is refrain myself from not taking a shower, but I refuse to eliminate the freedom of a long day and going into my shower and taking a shower and that's like minor accessories that we should be able to really utilize. And so I've had situations where I met individuals where they haven't taken a shower in 20 years because they don't even have the ability that I have to get off my chair and get on the floor. So, sometimes it's like, what am I complaining for? There's people that, what's not to take a shower in 20 years? That is crazy. That means you've been doing bed baths for the last 20 years. Like I've been in position where I was in a hospital for a year plus many times, and I done bed baths for a whole year. That's degrading. That's unhumane in so many different ways. And there's no time do you feel clean from using the bathroom, and then there's no sponge enough and then just the relaxation of being able to go and shower. So just to answer your question, those two pieces are what, in my personal journey right now is the ability to not get into certain rooms, but most importantly, the bathroom, where if I'm not careful, that most likely will create another, um, you know, uh, opportunities for me to get sick more, fall, which I've definitely fallen on the floor. Potentially, you could break your hip, you could break bones, and that within itself has been a scare. My biggest fear is that I'm at home by myself and I fall and I hit my head. So every time I go into the bathroom, I'm very, very cautious. I try not to do it when I'm by myself. And then that limits you, right? The whole concept of I gotta wait until someone's here for me to take a shower and jump in there. But yeah, those are the areas where I know that not having the accessible apartment, puts a layer of stress. It takes away a layer of independency, but it does put you in that red zone, with what I called, where you're rolling the dice, and you shouldn't have to roll the dice to go take a shower. Like that should be the last thing anyone. And again, that's me being able to, I'm young enough. I have stronger upper body that I could, I choose to, because I refuse to not be in position where I'm gonna lack of. But then, you think about these individuals that are paralyzed from the waist down, I mean from the chest down, from the neck down, or just don't have the strength to be able to move. Then I think at that point the safety is just, their personal hygiene. This is where, we get prone to more infections if you're not cleaning up well and you're not, doing what you need to do for your body. So yeah, that's what comes into mind when I hear that. I keep going back to that independence. But as a man, I'll be honest with you, I'm just very transparent. I deal with a lot of infections, so that means that at the times, majority of the time, I'll have an accident. That's degrading. As a husband, as a father, and mind you, I don't have, it's just me and my wife at this time, but it used to be me, my wife, and my son. And that was degrading. That was embarrassing. That was, I have to wait for somebody to help me, and it's just, I've done, I have an accident on myself. Um, that takes away from you, as a person. It's just little by little it starts, eat you up inside. So me having an apartment accessible, me being able to, go take care of my personal needs and not have to sit in feces for an hour or two until somebody gets here, and then have them you have to feel like you got to explain what happened. I've cried like a grown man, and more of a frustration and anger of like, you know I'm a man's man, right? And I don't mean to sound egotistical, but it's just more like pride, as a human being. Now, let me not use a man, because I'm sure if I was a woman, it'd be the same. Like nobody wants to sit in no feces and you know urine or whatever that is, and that would literally just give me confidence. It would boost my inner, strength. It would allow me to really feel like complete. I think the word is complete. I believe that there's incompleteness when you don't have these accessible apartments that you could, move and go as you please. I always tell people freedom comes in different shapes and form. Me as a paraplegic, it's like, yo, I don't know how people don't drive out there and have their license and go, because there's nothing more beautiful than me going into my car, putting my chair in there, and just going to work, school, wherever. Even if I just want to sit in my car, there's a level of freedom. And so I feel the same way. Like when you could feed yourself, you could literally have the independency that you could actually go to the where the washer and the dryer is, and you're not waiting and limited from someone's assistance, which I don't have a problem with that, but I think that it does gives you a quality of life that um it's like no other. And as I say here, even doing this interview, think about in the last 30 years, I've never had an accessible apartment. And I'm a very strong-minded individual. My mindset is like, okay, we're gonna figure it out. All right, whatever that is, because I'm not gonna stay homeless. So we're gonna go find an apartment that is as closest to the ground. We're gonna find that if I could get into the majority of the rooms, then okay, I'll figure out the rest. And that's always been the mindset. But not everybody has that. Not everybody has the support. Not everybody has the energy and the strength to be able to think about. So individuals at all levels of their life should be able to be free to make decisions and accommodate themselves in a way where it empowers them, it gives them freedom, they feel value, and they feel that they bring what they need to, whether it's in their family, in their own household, and society, to be able to like they're part of a solution, not a problem. I think the only piece that I would love to add is, for everyone to get involved. I plead and I share my story here, not because I want to be how you say pity. I believe that the disabled community, we're not seeking or to be petty. We're seeking to just be understood and really met where it's fair. And I really pray that everybody understands that a lot of folks, we didn't ask to be in these positions where we have to live a certain way, and our quality of life changed because of our accidents. Some of us were born like this. Some of us had an accident. Some of us, unfortunately, transition into this slowly from a disease or whatever it was. And I think this is not a, a one a certain percentage of the community. This is something that it really affects all of us as a whole. And we all going to get older. We all going to get to a point where, unfortunately, accidents do happen, things happen, life will life us. And so if you decide to turn away from the problem, act like it's not your problem, or because yes, I feel bad about it, but what can I do? That mindset is going to only get worse for our community, and this situation where it's potentially something that we all would have to probably deal with one way or the other, whether it's now, later, as we get older. Because when we get older, believe it or not, you're still going to need accessible housing. You're going to need, to be able to make sure that you navigate. Not everybody has the financial means to make those adjustments as they go. So I just pray that everybody pays attention and just see what you can do. And the minimum that we could do is actually just spread the word, right? Give some awareness. I do believe that a lot of things that are happening is not because people are just mean and they don't care. I think it's out of sight, out of mind. And I think that we need to understand we're going through a housing crisis across the board. So imagine, one thing is being homeless, right? Like I don't know the number, but I know there's a high percentage of individuals right now, families that are homeless. We're not talking about disabled or adaptive apartment. So imagine these individuals that are not only homeless, but then they still have to deal with the adaptive apartment, right? So even if they could actually get an apartment, they can't get in there because there is not something that's so suitable for them. So it's a different layer, it's another layer to the issue. And so I just want all of us, it's our obligation as to make sure we checking in on our neighbors, checking in our people, that are they all right. If you see someone that it seems like they're struggling, maybe connect them to the information, get them to the website, have the conversations, because I think that that's a start. And then after that, it's just understanding what can I do as a member of this community, so I could better create the systems, right, the SOPs to these house price processes. And then the percentage, if it's at 10, man, what do we need to do to get it to 15, so we can at least compete with the economy and compete how fast everything's moving, especially in Worcester, where it's growing, it looks beautiful. But what does that mean if you're pushing the heart of your community out to the outskirts, and then new folks come in from Boston or out of town? You're not fixing the problem. You're covering it up, and that ultimately is just going to come back to our society and our community, and it's going to hurt us more than what is doing now. I believe that we should mandate builders to really have like that percentage that we have. It's not enough. And I believe that it has to be part of our legislator, right? Like it has to be part of like doing business with us. We don't compromise our community, and we don't pick and choose what community we want to serve. Because yes, if you get the right person on this call, they'll be like, "Well, we are doing the best for our community." Well, what community are you talking about? Because you have a diverse community in Worcester, right? We're talking about Worcester, so really meet your community in all aspects of that in a way where it's just this is how we do business. And if you want to do business in Worcester and you want to develop in Worcester, this is has to be priority. And it can't be, I understand business is business, but we got to find that medium ground where we're not just checking off. And right now, that's what we're doing, guys. We're checking off, and say, well, we did what we needed to do. And it's like, no, that doesn't that number, and I don't know when did we came from 10% and how long we've been doing 10%, but that was probably good in the 90s or early 2000. And now we're in 2026. You've got over 20 something years, 30 years that, it might have been all right, but a 30-year wait, it's not acceptable. So if we could get from 30 to 15, that's probably not acceptable as well. But I think for me, I would feel like, okay, I might have a chance to getting this quality of life. So I believe it's just making it so we're doing when you do business in Worcester, Massachusetts, there's a certain level of commitment, a certain level of responsibility, and we don't just check off. How can we, equally move so all aspects of our community are getting the benefits of these projects, because we're growing, we continue to build out there, and we're giving stipends, and we're giving certain tax breaks for them to come and build. But it's like, okay, you're leaving one of the most important things is that these are individuals that are not going to go nowhere. You have people that are leaving our state and are thinking of leaving our state. So you're literally creating a situation where it's going to hurt us in the back end, and it has been hurting us in the back end.